Coming up, England unlocks greater freedoms, but at what price?
The Lunchtime News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good afternoon. The Vaccines Minister has insisted it is the right time to relax rules in England despite a surge in the number of COVID cases. At midnight, nearly all remaining restrictions were lifted, including an end to social distancing rules. Even with the changes, hundreds of thousands of people have been unable to head into work today after they were pinged by the Test and Trace app. Some Iceland supermarkets and Green King pubs are among those forced to close because so many staff are having to isolate. Our political reporter Shihab Khan reports on a country getting to grips with a new form of freedom. There have also been changes in Scotland today, with the whole of the country now moved to 11. Let's return to England, though, and get some reaction from a business that's been able to change the way it works overnight. Our correspondent Martha Fairley is outside a pub in North London. Martha, how's it looking there this lunchtime? Well, we've seen the celebrations of those who wanted the lockdown restrictions lifted, but for others, the changes have been far less welcome. Hannah Deacon has a rare illness and has been shielding throughout the pandemic. She is frightened by the steps that the government has taken today. Well, let's pick up on some of those points with Dr. Deepti Gudasani, who's one of our regular epidemiologists here on ITV Lunchtime News. Well, let's speak to our political editor now, Robert Peston. Robert, the government said today's changes were here to stay, but there's still plenty of questions, aren't there? Do you think that we're going to see tweaks going forward?
So, look, lots of businesses are saying staff are not turning up because they've either got the infection or have been significant, if businesses can't operate properly. But equally, hospitals are...
For now, thank you. Moving on, at least 5 people have died in separate drowning incidents across England as the country experienced the hottest weekend of the year so far. Incidents occurred across the country, from Croyd Beach in North Devon to Salford Quays in Greater Manchester. There were 3 separate incidents in Yorkshire, including in Wakefield, where a search is still underway in Pugneys Country Park. Well, Katie Oscroft is... Well, from hot weather here to the massive floods that have swept through Central Europe. At least 188 people in Germany and Belgium are now known to have died, with rescue crews continuing to sift through wreckage. Sally Biddulph has the latest. And that is it this lunchtime. I am back with the evening news at 6:30. The news where you are follows the national weather. But from everyone here for now, bye-bye. England lifts almost all restrictions, but is it too much, too soon?
Evening News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening from Leicester, where people behind me enjoying the warm weather, a city which has more reason than most to celebrate the easing of COVID restrictions in England. The people here have faced more measures than others, and it makes so-called Freedom Day all the more welcome. But it still doesn't feel back to normal. The Prime Minister himself has been forced to isolate. Boris Johnson took his Downing Street news conference today remotely from Chequers. He insisted, though, that now is the right time if people proceed cautiously. And there was a surprise and perhaps sobering announcement for those who've just been able to go to nightclubs again. From September, vaccine passports could be mandatory in some settings in England. Here's our political correspondent, Daniel Hewitt. Well, the building I'm in here in Leicester city centre was originally a grammar school dating from 1573. It's now a restaurant, and like many other businesses across the UK, it's had to learn some painful lessons during the pandemic. And any hopes that today would bring an end to the chaos and confusion of the past 18 months have sadly been dashed. There is uncertainty about what rules to apply and when. Many staff are having to isolate, as Hannah Miller reports from Manchester. Well, for many people who are clinically vulnerable, today was not a moment to celebrate. Some are still shielding because they either cannot be vaccinated or it's simply not effective. Others haven't been jabbed through no fault of their own. Juliet Bremner heard their fears. Well, today has also seen an easing of COVID restrictions. Children at risk of being seriously ill from COVID are to be offered vaccinations as soon as possible. It is targeted at those aged 12 to 17 with certain conditions. It will also apply to those living with people with weakened immune systems. Here's Geraint Vincent on the new drive to protect the most vulnerable. More to come from Leicester on the ITV Evening News Plus. Those stories and more after the break. Welcome back to Leicester, where people are now finally free of most COVID restrictions. In a moment, we'll have more on how residents here have been marking the occasion. But first, to the day's other stories, and the Met Office has issued its first ever amber extreme heat warning. High temperatures are forecast for the rest of the week, and several people drowned over the weekend. Here's Stacey Foster. Well, to the unprecedented weather in Western Europe, and residents in parts of Germany and Belgium are still trying to clear up from last week's catastrophic floods. Many are facing months away from their homes, but know that they are the lucky ones. As our Europe editor James Mates reports, the tragedy has seen communities pull together in support. Some news just in, and Prince Harry is to write and publish his memoirs in a... Finally tonight, here in Leicester, they have endured many hardships during the pandemic, so society opening up again is all the more special, but it's also going to take some getting used to. Ben Chapman heard from some of those enjoying the new freedoms. And that is all from us tonight. Charlene will be in the studio with the news at 10, but from me and all the team here in Leicester, goodbye.